Welcome to episode 3 of Gringo Gone Wild. I'm Rusty Johnson. In episode 2, I talked about my time in Zimbabwe, problems I had in customs, as well as my elephant encounter, and then coming face to face with Victoria Falls. In part 2, I'm really going to explain the incredible adventure that I had in actually the city of Victoria Falls. See, the city of Victoria Falls is very, very different. As soon as I pulled my cruiser to the side of the main road and took a walk through Main Street, I almost felt like I wasn't in Africa anymore. It was a majorly tourist town, almost like something you'd see in Colorado or Northern California. Being one of the most popular tourist attractions in the world, this provides many opportunities for people in the tourism industry, but it really doesn't provide any solutions for Zimbabwe's social problem. In Victoria Falls, as well as all of Zimbabwe, poverty is an extreme problem. Matter of fact, as soon as I parked my car and left it, I just had swarms of adults and children just coming right for me, asking for food and asking for money. This always brings up a difficult situation. I had enough money in my pocket that they could retire on, but if you're seen freely handing out money to strangers, you can get into a lot of serious trouble, particularly when you run out of money. In situations like this, I like to keep an eye on the individuals that may be in need, and when I'm ready to leave, I'll discreetly pass them some money or food that I could spare, but then I quickly move on. So the average Zimbabwean maybe makes about $1,000 per year, but the quote average is not so average. There are very few middle-class citizens in Zimbabwe. It seems to be either you have everything or you have nothing. And unfortunately, AIDS is steadily weakening the Zimbabwean economy, actually crippling it. Zimbabwe has one of the highest AIDS infection rates in the entire world. Nearly 1 out of every 3 or 4 adults in Zimbabwe have HIV virus. About 2,500 Zimbabweans a week die from the disease, and that figure is expected to rapidly rise in the coming decade. And with that high AIDS rate, what happens is as the years go past, not only do you have an AIDS problem, but you end up having an orphan problem. As I was walking down the street, I was becoming more and more engulfed by groups of people that were begging for money. I made it perfectly clear and was very tough and stern with the adult beggars, letting them know that I wasn't going to give them anything. A lot of them become very, very pushy. And most of it's because they're lazy. Yes, there's not many opportunities, if any, really, in Zimbabwe, but being pushy, almost to the point of feeling like you're going to get mugged, isn't going to fly with me. So I gave them the boot very quickly and was much more tender to the children because they're actually in a situation that's beyond their control. So then I started speaking to the children and ignoring the adults. So once the adults realized, all right, I'm not going to get any money out of this guy, they started wandering off looking for new income opportunities. But there's a different set of rules when it comes to the begging children. Pushy or not, they're alone, they're scared, and they're fighting for their lives every day. So I do my best to be very, very nice to them. I started talking with a girl with her 2 younger sisters. The 3 of them looked like they were neglected rag dolls with tattered, oversized clothes barely hanging off of them. I asked the name of the oldest girl, and she replied her name was Cambo. And her 2 sisters were Moriwa and Chipo. So then I asked them what they needed the money for. Did they have moms or dads? And they said, no, sir, we can't work, and my mommy and my daddy are dead. In her face, you could see, got kind of depressed. And she said, my dad died 2 years ago, my mom died last year. She said, well, she was 9. And after a long pause, she added that Moriwa was 7 and Chipo was 5, she thought. So I asked, well, when are your birthdays? And they didn't know. I said, you don't know your birthdays? They said, no. And Cambo said, well, she remembered her mother saying that Chipo was born in the summertime, but she wasn't sure when. So then I asked, who takes care of you guys? The older girl, Cambo, she says, I do. I said, where do you live? She says, any place we can sleep where nobody will bother us. So do people bother you a lot, I asked? And she said, yeah, all the time. There's always bad people here that want to bother you, and the nice people never pay attention to us. Then I asked, why do they bother you? They said, well, they try to take our food and our blankets, and then sometimes they try to hurt us. But if I scream, most of them run away. It was just so sad to think that, her only perception of, quote, nice people were people that ignore her. I said, you and your 2 sisters have been living in the streets all alone for the past year? And she said, yeah, sometimes it gets very cold at night and we hug each other to keep warm. So then I asked if they had any grandparents or aunts or uncles, and said, no, they all died. And I wanted to ask, how did your entire family die? But it was quite obviously that it was AIDS. And her grandparents actually did die from old age. The life expectancy in Zimbabwe, believe it or not, is only about 37 years old. So to be a grandma there is quite an achievement. But I could tell by the looks on their faces that they did not want to really talk about their parents. Just this depressed look came over them whenever we talked about it. So then I really tried to change the subject. Modiwa, she chimed in and she said, just the three of us, that's our family. I said, you live like the three musketeers. And they said, maybe. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. I forgot for a second I was in Africa, and they probably didn't ever hear of the three musketeers. But I promised that I would stop and talk to them before I left. We were around, Campbell promised with a bright smile, and I lightly patted the three of them on tops of their heads, and I walked away. They crossed the street and tucked underneath a dark alleyway, out of the bright sun. Needless to say, the stroll in the city of Victoria Falls was rather depressing. It is a vacationer's paradise. Don't get me wrong there. But it can be a resident's hell. Hidden within Victoria Falls' overwhelming beauty, the harsh realities of life continue to exist. Every night, the lonely, discarded children tuck themselves into dark and dingy alleyways of this beautiful city, only to wake up the following morning alone and hungry, like the unnoticed pebbles lodged in the grooves of a Ferrari's gas pedal. While exploring the ultra-modern storefronts, the tourists arriving in their luxury cars really thought about the girl's situation. I have to admit, my first thought was just scoop them up and take them home with me. But reality set in and realized that wasn't going to happen. So I just figured out that I was going to devise a plan that I could give them some money that would make their life a little bit easier. But when giving street children money, you really have to devise a plan. Because let's face it, just in the world itself, they're just mean people. And these mean people are watching all over the place, especially there. And if they see an adult giving money to a child, as soon as that person who gave the money walks away, they're going to go and rob that child or hurt her. So you really have to be discreet, make sure that no one else sees it. Just really to keep the children safe. Predators like this live among us in the civilized world as well. So when I was about to leave, I hop in my car and started cruising along the main roadway till I ran into the girls. And I pulled off to the side of the road and I waved them over. And they come running over, all smiles. Hello, sir, how you doing? And see one adult following them, trying to scam some money, of course. I quickly told him, I said, listen, I wasn't calling you over. I said, get lost. So he turned around and left, and all the girls told me at once that he was a very, very bad man. So I said, well, here, I want to help you out. I want to give you a little birthday present. Since you don't know when your birthdays are, let's make a deal. Your birthdays are today, and you all have the same birthday. So remember it, and so try to celebrate it every year. So I said, here's a plan. I said, when you enter Victoria Falls, there's a little town circle, a little town center, and in that center is a small locomotive train just sitting on a little piece of track. It's just as decoration. I said, I'm going to have a paper bag, and I'm going to put a paper bag behind the front wheel of this train. I said, and wait a few minutes. I said, and you walk over there and make sure nobody's looking. I said, go and grab the bag, and I'll be on the other side in my car watching to make sure that you're safe. So she said, okay, great, thank you so much. They're really appreciative kids, and it's amazing. The children really, they have nothing, and they're living in alleys, and they're just, the three of them are alone by themselves. And oddly enough, they seem happy. They're not happy with their situation, per se, but they're not walking around depressed, just woe's me. They're making the best of the horrible situation that they're in. And they're smiling and, quite honestly, smiling more than most of the children that I see here in the United States that have practically everything. So what I did was I put a fair amount of money in a paper bag, crumpled up the bag a bit, make it look like garbage, and got out of my car and started wandering around the town center and looking at the locomotive and just pretending I'm really caring about the train sitting there. And when no one was looking, I just dropped the paper bag beneath the train behind one of the front wheels, and then slowly walked back into my car. And I could see them wandering around, and finally we made eye contact, and I just kind of did a little eye roll and said, to tell the girls to go over and get the bag. And I tell you, they were street smart, man. They didn't just go running there and pick up this bag. They just kind of were wandering around and pretending they just were wandering. And then very nonchalantly, one little girl went over there and picked up the bag. And when she opened up her bag, man, her eyes just lit up. They just lit up like light bulbs when she saw the money in there. And then she quick closed the bag up and rolled it and just stuck it underneath her shirt. Then you can hear her whispering to her sisters what was in the bag, and all of them started giggling and stuff. So then I wave them over, and they come over. As they were next to the car, they had these just faces of appreciation and laughing and giggling and hopping around. I'm like, whoa, 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 relax, relax. If other people see that you're that happy, they're going to know something's happening. So just relax. But they're saying, thank you, nice man. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I said, you're welcome, sweethearts, but you better go in case the adults around here start getting suspicious. I don't want them to take the money from you. But it made me really sad to say goodbye to them. It was almost, kind of smiling through my tears just for their own good to say, come on, guys, you got to go. I could have hung out with them endlessly. They had such beautiful energy. But I knew if they hung around too long, the predators around the town would try to find out why. As I said, steal them or do far worse. So I shook their hands, patted them on their little heads, and away they went, walking back into what some people would think would be a paradise, but it truly is not a paradise for them. But what baffles me is that our planet possesses so many natural riches, yet we create a world that determines one's level of happiness, safety, quality of life to the amount of money of thin sheets of colored paper that we have. And this money dictates our life. Although these girls live in one of the most beautiful parts of the world, they're forced to believe that there's nothing more valuable than that colored paper. It will be the only way that they can survive in their world. But money does hold some mystical power to its owner. I witnessed this when they came to the truck and whispered thank you. They seemed like newer children. Their smiles were brighter, their posture was straighter, and their eyes sparkled like the smoke that thunders. Years have passed since that day, and I always wonder what became of the girls. I'm sure that question will never be answered, but I see comfort in believing that my gift at least made a little bit of their lives easier. Whenever I think of Victoria Falls, I think of the smiles on those girls. And since then, my children are born. So I think of these three girls when I tuck my children in at night and wonder how Cambo, Muriwa, and Chipo are doing. Are they hungry? Are they warm? Are they alive? Thanks so much for listening to episode 3 of Gringo Gone Wild. Please visit my website, gringogonewild.com. Subscribe, please, so I can alert you of all the new episodes that are coming out. I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned. And remember, in the end, all we have is our stories.